She collapsed at work, but what the CEO found in her bag changed everything. The sun had barely risen when Amara entered the glass doors of Knight Enterprises, one of the most powerful corporate empires in the city. She was dressed in her usual modest attire, a plain blouse tucked into a skirt that had seen better days. The security guard greeted her with a polite nod, but she barely noticed. Her eyes carried the exhaustion of sleepless nights, and her steps felt heavier than usual. Inside the office, employees bustled about, carrying files, sipping coffee, exchanging hurried greetings. Everyone looked sharp, full of energy, driven by ambition. But Amara, though young and intelligent, stood out for different reasons. Her pale face, her tired eyes, and the quiet aura of someone who carried too many burdens. She walked to her desk in the corner, tucked behind towering shelves of files. Unlike others, she didn't have family pictures on her desk, no small plant, no personal decoration. Just papers, sticky notes, and her laptop. Work was her world. Work was survival. Her colleagues often whispered about her. She never joins us for lunch. She's always working late. Strange girl. What's her story? But no one knew the truth. No one knew that every paycheck she earned went straight to her mother's medicines and her younger brother's school fees. She lived in a cramped one-room apartment and often skipped meals so her family wouldn't go hungry. This morning was especially hard. Amara had been up all night finishing reports for a crucial meeting. She hadn't eaten breakfast. Her body begged her to stop, but her mind pushed forward. At 9 o'clock sharp, the sound of polished shoes echoed across the office floor. The CEO had arrived. Adrian Knight, the man everyone respected and feared. He was tall, impeccably dressed, with eyes sharp enough to cut through excuses. He was known for his ruthlessness in business, but also for his genius. No one dared waste his time. Amara kept her head low as Adrian passed by. She didn't want to be noticed, but fate had other plans. As the morning wore on, the office grew tense. Adrian had called for an unexpected meeting. Reports had to be perfect, presentations flawless. Amara worked frantically, her hands trembling as she typed. The words on the screen began to blur. Her colleague, Sana, leaned over. "Amara, are you okay? You look pale." Amara forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." But she wasn't fine. Her heart raced. Sweat gathered on her forehead. She tried to stand, but the room spun violently. Her hand knocked over a pen holder, scattering pens across the floor. And then, silence. Her body gave way. She collapsed to the ground with a soft thud, her head narrowly missing the edge of the desk. Gasps filled the air. Papers fluttered down like startled birds. "Amara!" Sana screamed, rushing to her side. Others gathered around, their voices a blur. From the glass office at the far end, Adrian looked up, his eyes narrowing. He strode across the floor, parting the crowd with his presence. Kneeling beside Amara, he placed a steady hand on her shoulder. For a man known for his coldness, the sight of the fragile young woman unconscious on the floor stirred something unfamiliar within him. "Call an ambulance," he ordered sharply. His voice was calm, but his jaw tightened with concern. As he checked her pulse, something slipped from her open handbag. A small rectangular box. It slid across the polished floor, stopping at his shoes. Adrian picked it up absent-mindedly, his mind focused on Amara's condition. But when his eyes fell on the words, he froze. Pregnancy test. The crowd hadn't noticed. They were too busy whispering, panicking, fanning Amara with papers. But Adrian's gaze was locked on the object in his hand. The box bore the unmistakable sign positive. His chest tightened. Shock rippled through him. Questions he had no right to ask stormed his mind. Who was responsible? Why had she been hiding this? Was this why she looked so weak, so pale, so fragile? He slipped the test back discreetly before anyone could see. His face betrayed nothing, but inside, his world had shifted. The paramedics arrived, carefully lifting Amara onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her away, Adrian stood motionless, the weight of the secret pressing heavily on him. For the first time in years, the powerful CEO wasn't thinking about profits, mergers, or deadlines. He was thinking about the mysterious young woman who had collapsed at his feet, and the truth she carried silently within her. And he knew deep down this was only the beginning. The ambulance's siren faded into the distance, leaving behind an unusual silence in the office. The staff who had witnessed Amara's collapse slowly drifted back to their desks, whispering among themselves, exchanging curious glances. But the image of her frail body lying unconscious on the floor lingered in everyone's mind. Inside the CEO's glass cabin, Adrian Knight stood near the tall window, staring at the city skyline. His reflection in the glass looked calm, collected, the face of a man who never lost control. Yet inside, his thoughts raced chaotically. The pregnancy test. He had slipped it into his coat pocket before anyone noticed, but its weight felt unbearable, like a hidden truth burning against his chest. He had seen countless things in his life, betrayals, corporate scandals, financial downfalls, but never had a simple object shaken him this way. Why would she carry this with her? Why was she hiding it? Is this the reason she fainted? Adrian clenched his jaw. He wasn't supposed to care. She was just another employee, a replaceable piece in his massive company. Yet something about Amara was different. He remembered her quiet presence in meetings, the way she always avoided attention, her habit of staying late in the office long after others had left. Unlike many employees who tried to impress him, Amara seemed invisible, almost deliberately so. And now, this secret had shattered the fragile veil around her life. A soft knock broke his thoughts. It was Sanaa, Amara's colleague. "Sir, I just wanted to update you. The doctors said she fainted due to exhaustion. They're keeping her overnight for observation." Adrian nodded without turning. "Thank you." Sanaa hesitated. "She works too hard, sir. Honestly, she never eats properly, and she's always the last one to leave. I've tried telling her to rest, but she never listens." There was genuine concern in her voice. Adrian turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. "Does she ever talk about her personal life?" Sanaa shook her head. "No, she keeps everything to herself. I don't think she has any friends outside work. It's like, work is all she has." Adrian dismissed her with a nod. When she left, he sat at his desk, fingers tapping restlessly. He took out the test kit again, staring at the positive line glowing back at him. If this is true, she's carrying a child, alone, and she still comes to work every day, hiding it from the world. Why? His mind went darker. Who is the father? Is he irresponsible? Did he abandon her? Or, a thought he quickly shook off, or is there something more sinister here? He wasn't supposed to interfere, yet something compelled him. Perhaps it was her vulnerability. Perhaps it was the strange emptiness in his own life that echoed when he looked at hers. Whatever it was, he couldn't ignore it. That night, long after the office had emptied, Adrian remained at his desk. The city lights twinkled outside, but his focus remained on the file in front of him. Amara's employee record. Name, Amara Yousaf. Age, 24. Background, joined 3 years ago. No disciplinary issues. Excellent performance. Consistently among the top employees. But her file was painfully thin. No emergency contact listed. No family details. No social activities. Just work. Adrian leaned back, frustrated. It was like staring into a locked box. At that very moment, his phone buzzed. A call from the hospital. "This is Dr. Malik. We're calling about Miss Samara Yusuf. She's stable now, but she regained consciousness a while ago and asked for her supervisor. Since you're her listed manager, we thought we should inform you." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "She asked for me?" "Yes," the doctor confirmed. "She seems very distressed. It might help if you could visit." Adrian ended the call without a word. For a moment he sat still, debating. Then, against every instinct telling him to keep his distance, he grabbed his coat, and the test kit still hidden inside, and walked out. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and loneliness. Adrian's polished shoes echoed down the hallway until he reached Amara's room. She lay on the bed, her face pale, her eyes hollow yet alert when they met his. "Sir." Her voice was weak, almost breaking. Adrian pulled a chair beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" She forced a smile. "I'm fine, just embarrassed. I didn't want anyone to see me like that." His gaze sharpened. "You fainted from exhaustion. You shouldn't be working yourself to death." Her smile faltered. She looked away, staring at the ceiling. "Work is all I have." The words pierced him. For a man who lived for work himself, he recognized the truth in her voice. But there was something more, something she wasn't saying. After a long pause, he leaned forward. His voice softened, yet carried weight. "Amara, is there something you're hiding? Something I should know?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the bedsheet. For a second, he thought she might confess. But instead, tears welled up in her eyes. I can't," she whispered. Adrian sat back, his expression unreadable. He didn't press further. Not yet. But his hand slipped into his coat pocket, brushing against the test kit. He had discovered her secret. Now he needed the truth, and he would find it no matter how deep she buried it. The next morning, the office was buzzing. Not with work, but with gossip. Employees moved between cubicles, whispering in hushed voices, their eyes darting toward Amara's empty desk. She fainted, right in front of everyone. "I heard she hasn't been eating for weeks. Maybe she has some illness she's hiding. Or maybe it's something else." Speculation spread like wildfire, each story more twisted than the last. When Amara finally returned 2 days later, the whispers grew louder. She walked slowly, her body still weak, but her head was held high. She had always been invisible, but now every pair of eyes followed her. Some were curious, others judgmental. She avoided their stares, clutching her bag close to her chest, her footsteps quickening as if trying to outrun their suspicions. Inside his cabin, Adrian observed everything through the glass walls. He could read people well, and what he saw in his employees was clear. Rumors were beginning to paint Amara in dangerous colors. He called his assistant. "Shut down the gossip. I don't care how. If anyone's caught spreading lies about her, they'll answer to me." The assistant nodded quickly, though confusion flickered in his eyes. Adrian rarely involved himself in trivial office matters. But this was different. At lunch break, Amara sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria, stirring her soup absent-mindedly. She barely touched her food, her mind consumed with dread. Across the room, Sana joined her. "Amara, you're back. How are you feeling?" Amara forced a faint smile. "Better. Just need to take things slow." But Sana leaned closer, lowering her voice. "People are talking. They're saying strange things. Amara, is there something you want to tell me?" Amara's grip tightened on her spoon. For a moment, she thought of confessing, of unburdening herself. But the fear of judgment, of pity, of losing everything she had worked for, silenced her. "I'm fine, Sana." "Really?" she whispered. forcing the lie through trembling lips. Sanaa studied her, unconvinced, but said nothing more. Meanwhile, Adrian was in his office, pacing. He had replayed the hospital scene in his mind countless times. Her tears, her silence, her refusal to speak the truth. The test kit remained locked in his drawer, but it burned in his thoughts like fire. He opened his laptop and typed her name into the system again. This time he dug deeper: financial records, attendance history, even CCTV logs. What he found unsettled him further. Amara rarely left the office on time. Often, the cameras showed her leaving past midnight. She wasn't staying late for meetings. She was alone, buried in work. Why? And then there were her salary withdrawals. Every month, almost her entire paycheck was withdrawn in cash within 24 hours. No savings, no luxuries, just survival. Adrian rubbed his temple. She's living on the edge, and now she's pregnant. How long has she been carrying this burden? Alone? Later that day, Adrian called her into his cabin. She walked in nervously, her steps uncertain. "Sir, you asked for me?" He gestured for her to sit. His tone was calm, but his eyes sharp. "Amara, I've reviewed your work. You're one of the best employees in this company. Your dedication is unusual." She lowered her gaze. "Thank you, sir. But," he continued, leaning forward, "you're hiding something, and it's affecting your health. That's not sustainable. So I'll ask you once, what's going on?" Her breath caught. She could feel his gaze piercing through her defenses. Her throat tightened, words clawing to escape but trapped by fear. I can handle it, sir," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Handle it?" His tone hardened. "You collapsed in front of the entire office. That's not handling it. That's self-destruction." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she forced herself to stay composed. "I don't want pity. I just need to keep my job. Please." Something twisted inside Adrian at her plea. He wasn't used to employees begging for survival. They usually begged for promotions, bonuses, recognition, not for the mere chance to exist. He let out a long sigh. "You'll keep your job, but know this. If you keep hiding the truth, it will destroy you. And I don't intend to watch one of my best employees crumble without a fight." She looked up, startled by the unexpected softness in his words. But before she could respond, he dismissed her with a wave. That evening, as Amara left the building, two employees whispered by the elevator. She overheard them. "Did you see how the CEO called her impersonally? Maybe she's involved with him. That would explain a lot." Her chest tightened, humiliation burning through her. She quickened her steps, tears threatening to spill as she reached the street. She hated how the world twisted everything. Her pain, her silence, her very existence, into ugly rumors. Back in his office, Adrian stood by the window watching her leave. He saw the way her shoulders sagged, the way she wiped her eyes when she thought no one was looking. And in that moment he made a decision. He wasn't just going to uncover her secret. He was going to protect her from it. The following week, Amara's life in the office grew heavier with each passing day. The whispers hadn't stopped. They had only grown sharper, disguised behind fake smiles and polite greetings. Every time she walked past a group, their voices hushed, and their eyes followed her like knives. But the heaviest weight wasn't the rumors. It was Adrian. Since the hospital visit, his gaze lingered longer, his questions dug deeper. His presence loomed heavier than before, and she could sense he knew more than he was saying. One evening, after most employees had left, Amara stayed back, sorting files at her desk. The silence of the office was broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. She thought she was alone, until she heard the firm click of shoes behind her. "Still here?" Adrian's voice cut through the silence. She turned quickly, startled. Sir, I was just finishing some work. His eyes narrowed. At this hour? Again? You're pushing yourself too far. She looked down, clutching the papers to her chest. I need this job, sir. I can't afford to stop. Adrian stepped closer, his tone measured but carrying weight. Amara, you fainted. Twice, according to the hospital records. You've been working yourself sick, and you refuse to explain why. I won't allow it anymore. Her breath quickened. You can't control my life outside work. His jaw tightened. But this is work. And when it starts killing you, it becomes my business. The firmness in his tone rattled her. She tried to gather her courage. I'm fine. Please don't. Don't lie to me. His voice sharpened. He pulled open his drawer, and before she could react, he placed the pregnancy test on the desk between them. The blood drained from her face. She froze, staring at the small object that had haunted her for weeks. Her hands trembled, her lips parted, but no sound came. Adrian's gaze locked onto hers. I found this when you collapsed. Fell out of your bag. Don't deny it, Amara. Tell me the truth. Tears welled in her eyes. Her mind screamed at her to run, to deny, to bury the truth deeper. But the weight of his stare pinned her in place. I can't, she whispered. Can't or won't. His voice was low, but it cut like steel. Her body shook. The walls she had built inside began to crack. She clenched her fists, fighting the tears threatening to spill. You don't understand, you can't. This isn't something I can explain. If people know, I'll lose everything. Adrian's tone softened, though his eyes remained sharp. You've already lost your health. What more are you willing to risk? Her tears broke free. She turned away, covering her face with her hands. You don't know what it's like to be alone, to have no one to turn to carry a secret so heavy, it drowns you every single day. Her voice cracked, raw and trembling. Adrian stood still, the words striking deeper than he expected. For the first time, he saw not just an employee, but a fragile soul, suffocating under the weight of silence. Slowly, he said, Then let me help you. She shook her head violently. No, you can't. If you get involved, it'll only get worse. People they already talk about me. They think. She stopped herself, choking on the words. Adrian stepped closer, his voice firm yet calm. Let them talk. I don't care about rumors. What I care about is the truth. Yours. And until you speak it, you'll keep breaking apart like this. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room, broken only by the sound of her quiet sobs. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, The father, he's gone. He left before he even knew. Adrian's chest tightened. The anger in his eyes wasn't directed at her, but at the faceless man who had abandoned her. And you've been carrying this alone? He asked, his voice low. She nodded slowly, wiping her tears. I couldn't tell anyone. My family depends on me. If they find out, if the office finds out, everything will collapse. I'll lose my job, my dignity, my brother's future. So I stayed silent. Her confession pierced through Adrian. He had spent his life building walls around himself, keeping emotions out, living in a fortress of control. But seeing her crumble under a secret she shouldn't have carried alone, it stirred something in him. He placed the test back into the drawer and closed it. Then silence ends here. You don't have to fight this battle alone anymore. Her eyes widened, startled by the unexpected kindness. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Adrian's gaze softened, a rare vulnerability flashing in his eyes. Because I know what it feels like to be alone, more than you realize. The weight of his words settled between them, unspoken but powerful. For the first time, Amara looked at him not as her cold CEO, but as a man carrying his own invisible battles. And in that fragile moment, two broken souls stood at the edge of something neither had expected. Trust. The rain poured heavily that night, drumming against the office windows like restless fingers. Most employees had already left, but the CEO's cabin still glowed. Adrian sat behind his desk, reviewing documents, though his mind wasn't in them. Across the table, Amara sat silently. He had asked her to stay after hours, and she hadn't refused. The confrontation from the night before had shaken them both. For the first time, her secret wasn't just hers. But now came the harder part, the truth itself. The silence stretched, broken only by the rain. Finally, Adrian spoke, his tone calm but unwavering. You said the father is gone, but that can't be the whole story. I need to know everything. No more fragments, no more half-truths. Tell me what you've been hiding. Amara's eyes glistened, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. She took a deep breath, as if preparing to open a door she had kept locked for too long. It started 2 years ago, she whispered, when my father died. Adrian leaned back slightly, his eyes steady on her. He was the only one earning in our family. After he passed, everything fell on me. My mother was already sick, and my younger brother, he was still in school. I had to become the breadwinner overnight. That's why I joined this company. I didn't care how hard it was. I just needed the paycheck. Her voice cracked, but she pushed on. For a while I managed. It wasn't easy, but I kept us afloat. Then I met him. She paused, her chest tightening. The memory was both tender and painful. He was kind, or at least he seemed to be. He said all the right words, gave me hope when I had none. I thought, maybe I could have happiness too. Maybe I wasn't destined to just survive. For the first time I felt seen. Her hands shook as she clasped them together. But when I told him about the pregnancy, everything changed. His face, I'll never forget it. He said he wasn't ready, that it was my problem, not his. The next day he was gone. No calls, no messages, nothing. Like I never existed. Tears rolled down her cheeks, her voice trembling with raw hurt. I begged him, not for myself, but for the child. But he left, and I had no choice. I couldn't tell my mother. She's too fragile, her heart wouldn't take it. I couldn't tell my brother, he looks up to me. So I swallowed it all. Alone. Her sobs filled the room, the rain outside echoing her pain. Adrian remained silent, but his hands tightened into fists on the desk. He wanted to storm out, to find the faceless man who had abandoned her, and make him pay. But all he could do was sit there, watching her break. I thought, she whispered, her voice barely audible. If I worked harder, if I kept going, maybe no one would notice. Maybe I could protect my family from shame. Maybe I could give this child a chance. But it's killing me, sir. Every day, it's killing me. Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Adrian's chest ached. For years, he had believed strength meant solitude, that emotions were weakness, and trust was dangerous. But here sat a young woman, who despite her brokenness, had fought harder than anyone he had ever known. He finally spoke, his voice softer than she had ever heard. You've been carrying the weight of 2 lives on your shoulders. No one should have to do that alone. Amara shook her head. I don't want pity. This isn't pity, he said firmly. It's respect. More than you realize. She looked up at him, startled. Adrian leaned forward, his eyes unwavering. I've built an empire, Amara. But for the first time, I feel like I'm sitting in front of someone stronger than me. You didn't crumble even when life gave you every reason to. That isn't weakness. That's courage. Her tears flowed freely now, not just from pain, but from the relief of finally being understood. For a long moment, neither spoke. The storm outside mirrored the storm that had raged inside her for months. But tonight, for the first time, she didn't feel alone in it. Adrian finally stood, walking to the window. His reflection in the glass looked different. Less like the unshakable CEO, and more like a man questioning the walls he had built around himself. "From now on," he said, his voice low but resolute, "you don't fight this alone. Not in my company, not in my presence. Do you understand?" Amara's breath caught. Why are you doing this for me?" He turned, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that silenced every doubt. "Because I can. And because I won't stand by while someone with your strength drowns in silence." The words settled over her like a blanket of unexpected warmth. For the first time in months, Amara allowed herself to exhale. A long, shaky breath that carried with it a fragment of hope. But as the night grew darker, one thought lingered in her mind. What price would this truth demand from both of them? Days turned into weeks, and though the storm of gossip in the office never truly stopped, something within Amara had shifted. For the first time, she wasn't carrying her burden alone. Adrian had kept his word. Quietly but firmly, he had created a shield around her. The whispers were silenced under his sharp warnings. The workload on her desk was eased without her asking. And for every late hour she tried to stay, he found a reason to send her home earlier. The employees noticed the change. "Why is the CEO paying so much attention to her?" some whispered. Others speculated about secret relationships, hidden favors. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew the silent promise Adrian had made to himself. He would not let her fall again. Amara, though still fragile, began to breathe easier. Yet one fear still lingered. What would happen when the truth inevitably came out? How long could she hide her pregnancy before the world saw it for themselves? One afternoon, as she left the office, she found Adrian waiting near the elevator. "Come with me," he said simply. She frowned, confused. "Where?" "Somewhere you need to be." The ride was silent, but not uncomfortable. Adrian's car cut through the city until it reached a small, quiet neighborhood. They stopped outside a modest house. "This?" Amara whispered. "This is a hospital?" Adrian shook his head. "No, a safe place. Someone I trust." Inside, they were greeted by a kind-faced woman in her 50s. "Adrian," she said warmly, before turning to Amara. "And you must be the young lady he mentioned. Come in, child." Amara looked at Adrian, startled. "You told her about me?" "Only enough to help," he assured her. The woman, Dr. Farah, was a retired gynecologist. She listened patiently as Amara reluctantly explained her situation. Instead of judgment, Amara found only compassion. Dr. Farah examined her, gave her vitamins, and assured her the baby was healthy. Tears welled in Amara's eyes at the simple kindness. She hadn't realized how desperately she needed someone to say, "You're not failing. You're not alone." Outside, as they left, Amara turned to Adrian. "Why are you doing all this? You don't owe me anything." He met her gaze, his voice steady. "Maybe I don't owe you, but I refuse to let someone with your strength suffer in silence while I stand by. Not when I can help." Her lips trembled, words failing her. All she could do was whisper, "Thank you." The twist. But fate was not done testing her. 1 week later, during a company board meeting, a file landed on Adrian's desk. It was a report compiled by one of the directors, a background check on Amara. Adrian's eyes scanned the pages until they froze on a photograph clipped to the back. It was him, the man who had abandoned Amara, a wealthy businessman, now partnering with Knight Enterprises for a major project. Adrian's blood boiled. The audacity of fate, bringing this man into his world, into her world, as if mocking them both. That evening he called Amara into his cabin. He placed the file before her. "Do you know this man?" Her eyes fell on the photograph. Color drained from her face. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "How do you have this?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "He's trying to partner with my company. He'll be at tomorrow's board meeting." Her breath caught. Panic flooded her eyes. No, I can't face him. Please, don't make me." Adrian cut her off gently but firmly. "You won't face him alone. If he dares to walk into this company, he'll answer to me." The final showdown. The next day, the boardroom was filled with executives and directors. At the far end of the table sat the man who had once promised Amara the world, now wearing a smug smile, pretending he had no skeletons in his closet. Adrian entered, his presence commanding silence. He spoke with precision, his words sharp as knives. "Before we discuss partnerships, I make it clear. This company does not associate with men who abandon their responsibilities." Confusion flickered across the directors' faces. The man shifted uncomfortably. I don't understand." Adrian's eyes burned with controlled fury. "You left something behind, didn't you? A life you refused to acknowledge. A child you abandoned before he even opened his eyes to this world." Gasps echoed in the room. Amara, seated quietly in the corner, felt her heart stop. Her secret, laid bare in the harsh light of the boardroom. The man's face twisted. "You can't prove." "I don't need to," Adrian cut in coldly. "The proof is alive and she works in this very company. And as long as I breathe, she and her child will never suffer because of you." The man's face went pale. The board erupted into whispers. Within minutes, the deal was dissolved, his reputation in tatters. He stormed out, humiliated, powerless. Amara sat frozen, her heart pounding. She had never imagined her truth would explode in such a way. When the room cleared, she turned to Adrian, tears streaming down her face. You ruined everything. Everyone knows now." "No," Adrian interrupted firmly. "I saved you. You don't have to hide anymore. Your silence was protecting the wrong people. Now it protects no one." Her sobs broke free, but this time, they weren't from despair. They were from relief, from the unbearable weight finally lifting from her shoulders. Adrian stepped closer, his voice softer. "You're not alone, Amara. Not anymore." Epilogue. Weeks later, the office had moved on from the storm. The whispers had quieted, replaced by respect. Amara walked the halls with her head higher, her steps lighter. Adrian, though still the same sharp CEO, had changed too. His coldness had softened at the edges. In her, he had found something he didn't know he needed. A reminder that even the strongest walls can't keep out humanity. And though their story was only beginning, one truth was clear. The girl who once collapsed in silence now stood in strength. And the man who once lived only for power had found a reason to protect more than just his empire. Together, they had turned pain into strength and silence into something unbreakable.